I read a little thing on Facebook that really hit me.
Mm-hmm.
It said, "How do you define age?"
Mm-hmm.
I define age by the fact that I get to where I get tired a lot quicker than I used to. Inside, I'm
Mm-hmm.
still me,
Yeah.
and I still feel the same.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I can do anything,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but I know I can't. But really, I feel like that the sky's the limit. All I
Yeah.
got to do is get up and do that, you know.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to The Southern Citizen. I'm the host, Hope Newsom Staples. And if you're new here, the premise of this show is pretty simple. I spend time talking to folks I love to call Southern citizens. To carry the title of a Southern citizen, you have to meet two requirements. Number one, you've got to be from the American South. And number two, I'm going to need you to be 75 years or older. Sometimes I break my own rule, but I try and stick to it best I can. A few months back, I sat down with one of these Southern citizens. His family calls him Dink, and he is one of the sweetest souls I've ever met. During our conversation, Dink and I were also joined by his granddaughter and my dear friend Dawn. So listen in as we elevate the voice of a true Southern citizen. Okay, here goes nothing. You ready to get started?
Yes,
Okay, so can you introduce yourself?
I'm Dennis Harrington
Okay. Middle name?
Ray.
Dennis Ray?
Dennis Ray, yeah.
You know what? Up until about 30 minutes ago, I had no idea what your name was.
Is that right?
I only
Well,
knew
they-
you as Dink.
I'm Dink. I've been Dink all my life.
I was actually hoping you would not have told me your name until we started recording because I thought earlier I had no idea what your name was.
Is
So.
that right?
Dink is such a sweet name.
It is.
Is there a story there?
Well, just that my granddaddy called me Dinky Ray.
Oh, so this goes
So
back.
that's where the Dink came from.
Oh, so this was not something grandchildren started calling you.
No, I loaned that to them when we started having grandchildren.
Dinky Ray. Okay, I like that. All right, so what would you like to be called during our interview?
Just Dennis or Dink.
Okay,
doesn't
so
matter.
people call you Dink at church or wherever, or
No.
Okay.
Just
family. Okay.
just family. No.
Okay.
Sometimes if somebody from way back in my history
Okay.
called, said, "Hey Dink, how you doing?" You know,
Okay.
then I know that they came from somewhere else.
Another time.
Or it's going to be Michael or Adam.
Okay. So in school you were Dink though, like your friends, did they call
Yeah.
you Dink?
Sometimes they did.
Okay. I love that name. That is the sweetest name. I just recently learned that that's also an acronym. Have you heard this, Dawn? Dink today can also stand for dual income, no kids.
Yes, I have heard that.
Because lots of married folks today have two incomes and no children. And they're called Dinks.
That's funny.
Yeah, so anyway. All right, so when were you born?
On October 24th, 1929.
Okay, and where were you born?
I was born in Lauderdale County
Okay,
at Collinsville.
Collinsville. Okay, and so how old are you today?
I'm 94 now.
Okay,
Be 95 in October.
October. Okay, what a wonderful time of year for a birthday. My daughter was born in October. So do you know, are there any stories surrounding your birth that you've been told through the years?
Yes, I guess this would be interesting to somebody. I was born in the back room of one of the old houses where my granddaddy and them lived,
So you were born at home.
at my mother's old home place. In fact, the first 3 of my dad's children were born at that house.
Okay.
And but it was I was delivered by an old doctor named McDonald, Dr. McDonald. Dr. McDonald delivered me, and Daddy told him that he wanted to name me Dennis Ray. Well, a few years ago, my daughter and her husband went to England. I hadn't never been to England.
Mm-hmm.
I said, gosh, I want to go there. So I started looking into trying to get me a passport.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't no Dennis Ray. Never was a Dennis Ray. I was Donald Ray. Now, here's what happened. An old midwife was there, and she said, Ted, why don't you name him Donald Ray after the doctor? Dad said, Dr. McDonald was still standing there. And he said, I believe I could have done that, but he said I didn't think about it. Dr. McDonald fixed it. He changed it. Daddy didn't know it. So he put Donald Ray on my birth certificate. I got it in there now.
So the doctor named you after himself?
After himself, yeah. But it was because this old woman said, why didn't you name him Donald Ray? See?
Well, because...
Now, rest of the story is Belinda and her husband transferred back to the U.S., and I never did get my birth certificate, my passport.
Yeah.
So I hadn't ever been to England.
Well, doggone it. Okay.
I don't know what I'm going to do about that.
Well, hey, I'm going to France this year. We should go. Maybe we could drop you off in England.
Would you do that?
Yeah. Get your passport. You better start working on that now, okay?
My kids have been going over there to Ireland and Scotland, and they all went. My youngest daughter is a nut about genealogy. Now, she believes she has got book-oodles of stuff. If you want to know anything about the Harrington family or the Foster family, which was my mother's people, ask Denise. And she said that back in the 1600s, we were Harringtons, spelled H-A-R. And somebody along the way started pronouncing it Harrington. And so they put an E in it. When I went in the Army, they were going to pay me. They paid cash. They were going to pay me. I went for pay call. And this Lieutenant Scarpelli, I won't ever forget him. He had his little table set out on the parade ground. Had his money all stretched out there on that table. And you walked up and saluted him, and he would take your name, and he would pay you according to what the book said. Well, they got ready to pay me. He said, are you sure you're in the right organization? I said, I'm just where they told me to go. He said, well, I don't have a Harrington. And I said, well, it's not Harrington, it's Harrington. Oh, he said, okay. But anyhow, after that, I didn't have any problem. They knew who I was.
So your name has caused you trouble.
Yeah,
all
it
through
has.
your.
But you know, all the people that really matter know me as Dennis, so that's
right.
What I am.
Did your dad ever know about the mix-up with the names?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He told me. He said I didn't dream that they did that. But he said, I do remember that woman said, Ted, why don't you go ahead and name him Donald Ray after the doctor?
That
And
is
he
so
said,
wild.
don't believe, I didn't think about that, he said.
Yeah.
But
What-
Dr. McDonald changed it.
Well, that's a great story about your birth.
It
I love
is.
that. Well, so, Dink, what would you say is your very earliest memory in your life?
Probably when I was about 4, I remember we were living on a farm, and Dad and my mother and me and my youngest sister. She was just about 2 years old, and I must have been 4. So I remember going down to the field to take him a little bottle of water. And I got down there, and he wasn't there. And I came back to the house. Now, I'm 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I got back to the house, and Dad is sitting on the porch with my mother. And they just having a lot of fun laughing because they could see me down in the cornfields. But that's probably one of the earliest memories I have. My mother died when I was 7.
Okay.
And the one memory I have of her was we had a wood fire stove. I mean, a wood stove. And it was cold weather, and I remember she would put me behind the wood stove in the corner, and so I could stay warm while she fixed breakfast.
Wow. What happened to your mom?
She hemorrhaged to death.
Okay.
Don't know for sure, but I figure she had a miscarriage.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She had 4 little children. Boom, boom, boom. About almost 2 years apart.
Yeah.
And then she had this one baby he was about 18 months old when she died. And she started hemorrhaging. So I believe. I don't. Dr. McDonald's dead now, bless his heart, but I believe he let her die because he didn't know what to do.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And he kept telling Dad, said, she'll be all right. Just leave her in bed. She'll be okay.
Yeah.
Well, she can't stay in bed with 4 little children, you know. So she'd get up, and then she bled to death. But we made it.
Yeah. What did your dad do after that?
Well, he divided us up for a couple of 3 years. I went to my granddaddy Foster's. My oldest sister went to live with one of our aunts. And the other 2 little ones, my youngest sister, which would have been about 2, I guess Lee would have probably been 3. She was probably 3. And my older sister was 5, and I was 7. So we lived that way for about 3 years, and my granddad finally told Daddy, said, "You need to do something because you have these 2 little kids," and said, "Grandma can't handle it all." Said, "You're gonna have to do something." So Dad married a younger woman, and she was a good woman. Good woman. She was not educated, but we weren't either. So, but she really was a good woman. And my sister asked him one time after she died, after my stepmother died, said, "Dad, did you really love Mama Faye?" And he said, at first, no. But he said, "I learned." And she was good to him. She was good to us.
Yeah. So you called her Mama Faye?
Mama Faye. It started out as Miss Willie Faye, but then some of the kids couldn't say Miss Willie Faye, so they called her Mama Faye, so we all did.
Wow. That's amazing. So your daddy had 4? There were 4 little children.
4, and him and my stepmother had 2 more.
Wow. What a story. What a story of your dad.
Yeah.
You know, were they married for a long time?
Oh, yeah. She died. Dad died in 1994.
Okay.
Mama Faye must have died 5 or 6 years earlier.
Okay. Oh, okay.
But she was 11 years his junior. And so she had pneumonia and died.
Okay. So she stepped into that situation with no children of her own.
No children,
Wow.
no. She was only about 20. Dad must have been 31 because they had the same birthday, and they were married on that day, December 23rd.
Wow.
Both of them were born on December 23rd.
It's easy to remember, huh?
and and so my younger sister had wound up in California,
Okay.
so we would always get together at our house, at my house, because I lived in Meridian. way up
Yeah.
high. We didn't have telephones out
Yeah.
at Collinsville then. So anyway, we would get together at the house and call Lee and visit with her a while.
Sweet. So what was your mother's name?
Waver.
Wava.
Mhm.
Okay. And then your dad?
Well, his real name was Thomas Ray,
Okay.
but everybody called him Teddy Ray.
Teddy Ray. My
But
dad's
Ted.
name is Ted.
Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Well, his name was not really Ted, but everybody. I don't know just exactly. I think he told me one time that an old man that lived in the community, because he was a little on the chubby side as a little kid, they called him Teddy Bear. Now, he thinks that that's where it came from. May have, may not.
Okay. And
But-
then your stepmother was
Willie Fay.
Willie Fay.
Yeah,
Okay. So I have another question. I always ask people this. Do you have a memory of Elvis or any thoughts on Elvis Presley
Oh, yeah.
as
yeah.
a Southerner?
Yeah.
What do you think of when you hear the name Elvis?
Well, I just remember the
Yeah.
first time I ever saw him. I had just gotten out of the Army in 1953,
Mm-hmm.
and he came to Ray Stadium in Meridian and did a thing. First time I had ever heard of him. But he showed up, and everybody just went crazy. And he said he kept wanting to quit. And, of course, it was during, I think, maybe the Jimmy Rogers deal that we have every
Just
year
had,
up
yeah.
there. And so he was there in Meridian for the Jimmy Rogers thing. He stole the show.
Oh yeah, no doubt, right?
And he said, I have to quit, y'all. He says, I got a book in Alcatraz tomorrow. He said, he's lied. But anyhow, he said, I'm coming back next year, and I'm going to be driving a pink Cadillac. Y'all watch for me. And he did.
So you went to his concert?
Yeah.
You
yeah.
saw him perform?
Yeah, yeah. saw
I
it.
cannot
Yeah.
believe that.
Yeah, I had just gotten out of the service. We me and my wife, and both. I had only had 2 kids
And
at
y'all
that
went
time.
to the concert.
So we sat there
Gosh.
for the concert.
So how was he live? Was he a good performer?
Oh yeah, he carried on. Just same old Elvis. Same old Elvis.
Did you have a favorite song that you remember from the concert?
No, just
All
the
of it.
fact. The main thing I knew about Elvis is he couldn't be still.
Right. Did he dance the whole time?
He danced the whole time he was up there.
I cannot believe you saw Elvis Presley live in concert. That is amazing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
How much do you think the ticket was?
Oh, very little.
Yeah.
You know, it may not have been anything.
Okay.
They may have been doing that
Yeah.
free.
Because he was just kind of getting.
He was just one. They didn't pay those people anything. I had just gone to. No, I was not working for Borden at that time. I was working for Standard Coffee Company, and but then I went to work for Borden, and after that, every time we'd have a Jimmy Rogers thing, we'd bring the Borden train into Meridian, and
Never heard of
so
that. What's the
we-
Borden train?
yeah, it was a little Farmall tractor, and they had made it look like a
How cute.
steam engine, yeah.
So you are a Meridian boy, huh?
oh yeah, I was raised at Collinsville.
Okay. Did you call it the Queen City?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what they called it.
Is there, okay, I've heard why it's called the Queen City, but do you have a
Well,
story
in
there?
my mind, and I'm thinking I'm telling you the truth, Jackson was always just a little bigger than Meridian.
Okay.
So it was referred to as the main city. And in Meridian, they were fighting over first place all the
Okay.
time. But Meridian was always the Queen City.
I heard this story about there's a gypsy queen buried in Meridian.
She is, yeah.
And
she's
I
buried.
heard that was why it was called the Queen City.
Yeah,
I wondered if you'd ever because you can go by her
Yeah,
her grave.
Her grave is up there on top of the hill at what they
Yeah.
call Rose Hill Cemetery,
Yeah.
and several of those gypsies are buried
Yeah.
there.
It was like a big thing when she passed, and like a big parade, and
Yeah. There was
Interesting.
people who tried to get into the grave because they were told that there might have been a lot of money
yeah.
put in the grave. But you don't know,
Yeah, exactly. Well, so did you touch Elvis? Did you get that close to him?
No, I didn't. I didn't get to touch him or anything. But
You might
I'll
not have
tell
wanted
you,
to. If
Did you
you
get his
could,
autograph?
huh?
every time he was gonna be anywhere nearby, I wanted to hear him sing.
Wow.
On television, all that stuff. And what was the old boy's name that had that show on Sunday night? Y'all probably
Ed
don't.
Sullivan.
Ed Sullivan,
Okay.
yeah, Ed Sullivan show. Ed Sullivan wanted him on, but he wanted him to be still.
Yeah.
And
I heard that.
he said, "Man, I can't sing and be still." And Ed said, "Well, you can't be on my show 'cause this is a family show. You can't wiggle like that, see." And but the people found out about it, and they said, "We want Elvis." So they had to bring him in, and Ed didn't like that. But he put him on, but he tried to tone him down as much as he could.
I don't think you couldn't tone Elvis down, huh?
It's hard to tone
Yeah,
Elvis
that's
down.
right. Well, tell me about your siblings. So there were 4 of you,
Yeah,
you said, and what number were you?
I was number one.
You were okay. That's what I was making sure. You were number
I'm
one.
the smartest one, you know that.
The smartest. I love that. I'm sure you were. I'm sure you are. So number 1 boy, and then
Two
No.
girls
2 girls.
and then another boy.
Okay, 2 boys,
So-
2 girls.
We talking about the stepmother.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, my brother, was about 18 months old when mother died. He was just a toddler. And so grandmother took him and took care of him, and it was just like having a newborn baby almost in the house. So she fell in love with Dan, and she kept him as long as she could. And but the funny thing was, if Mama Faye told Dan something that she wanted him to do and he didn't want to do it, he went to Grandma's house. Grandma would sympathize with him and tell him, "Well, she's not your mama anyhow. She shouldn't have done that."
Was this Ted's mama? Your dad's mom?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Dad's mom.
Well, so did you live around family? Were y'all in Collinsville?
All around. Yeah, we were sharecroppers, and of course, I tell them that I was born in 1929, and the Depression hit that year.
Yeah.
The banks went crazy, and of course, I didn't know any better. I didn't know anything about all that, but times were tough. Dad would get a job, and he would stay until they closed the place down.
Right.
And then he'd move to another job, and then sometime he'd just pull out and go farm a year or two.
What kind of work did he do?
He worked at the Flintcoat Company. It was the last job he had. Oh, he did everything.
Okay.
He guarded convicts, and he worked for other people, farming, sharecropping with other people and so forth. So, but he knew cattle. He knew cows, and so he got in with Judge Williamson in Meridian. They knew each other, and they got into the cattle business together. And so from then on, Dad worked at the Flintcoat Company and looked after the cows. The funniest thing that I ever remember about cows was we were going out west one time, me and the wife and 2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Just had the 2 at that time. And we got off out in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, we're going through this little town of Utah, in Utah, Delta, Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's cow manure all in the streets. And I thought, well, what in the world is going on here? Come to find out, they had just brought in a whole bunch of cattle off of the mountains. And they had them in a pen, a huge pen, just outside of town. Of course, we went on through the little town. There was the cows over there. So I told the kids, I said, you got to see this, because what they're doing is they're going to separate those cows. And they'll have to figure out which one of them this calf belongs to. They've all got notches on them, so they'll know whose cow it was to start with. Whichever calf goes to her and she allows to nurse, they know that's her calf, so they notch that one's ear. And so it was really fun. So I got out of the car, and me and the kids got up in the bleachers by the side of the fence, and I watched them, and I thought that was so interesting to watch them. They had the cowboys running around out there.
That is so cool.
And they were pulling those calves out and putting them with the right mama.
To see whose cow it was, Wow.
But it was fun to watch that. And I enjoyed cattle. I enjoyed fooling with cattle myself. I never did get big in it, but I just did it for fun, you know. But it was fun.
Well, so what kind of farming, sharecropping did your dad do?
Well, on a sharecropping farm, the man that owned the property would normally furnish the seed and the fertilizer. We would do the work. We was raising row crops, corn, cotton, cane, gardens, and all that kind of stuff, you know. But it was an interesting life, and we didn't know any better. You know that I was 21 years old when I went in the Army. We still didn't have power.
I wanted to ask you about electricity.
Yeah, there had been power lines up there, but it was a half a mile off of the main road down to our house. And Dad said, I can't afford to run a line down there, and the power company won't do it. So when I went in the Army in 1951, we still didn't have power. And we still cooked on a cook stove, still heated the old house with a fireplace.
What about water? What was water access?
We had a pump. The old house was where a big sawmill used to be years ago, and they had drilled a handle pump, which was as far as from here to the road from the house. So every evening, me and the other girls would have to bring water from the pump, so we'd have water to wash our little feet with at night.
So what about the bathroom situation?
Well, we had an open situation. The girls had a bathroom.
Indoor?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. But they had a bathroom behind the house, but just a toilet.
Yeah.
A twin hole.
I don't know what that is.
You don't?
I don't.
Yeah, it was a twin hole deal.
Okay.
You had 2 seats in there.
Like two. So 2 people could be in there at the same time. I've never heard of that.
It was a 2-holer, they called it. But of course, we also had the woods and the barn.
That's right. Okay.
But,
so when do you think your dad finally got? So was that house on the property where he was farming, or was that?
Well, we bought that.
Okay, he owned that.
I guess I must have been 15 years old, and Dad was working full time at the Flintcoat plant.
Yeah.
But he would get a day off once a week, and so farming was my job. but he would help me on his days off.
Mm-hmm.
So if he was off a day and I had more plowing than I needed to do by myself, then he'd hook up the other mule, out we'd go.
Wow.
And so I made such a good crop that last year. I had corn, ears of corn that long, and you could count it. There's 72 pounds of corn in a bushel.
Mm-hmm.
And you could pick out any 72 ears of that corn, and you had your bushel of corn.
Wow.
That's what it weighed. And so those things were heavy.
I bet.
And I had an old fella that helped me to gather the corn. And we filled up everything we had. And the hall of the barn where we were back at the old home farm where my mother was raised.
Mm-hmm.
We were farming there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we filled up the cribs, and then we still had corn. And of course I had cotton too, so we sold the cotton and gathered the corn, sold all of it that we didn't need.
Mm-hmm.
And we had about $1,500 left. Dad found this property, which was right down the road from where we lived. So we bought it. He never had owned any property before in his life.
Mm-hmm.
So we bought that. So the last few years that I was at home, I farmed that old place.
Mm-hmm. And it was yours. It was your dad owned that property.
Yeah,
huh?
where Dad and them, where they lived
Yeah.
when I left home,
Yeah.
you know. But they made it
Yeah.
till they built the reservoir. When they built the reservoir, the government said we got to have that land. I, in the meantime, had bought the old farm, the old home farm up there where Mother was.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had that land, and so they took about, took about 50 acres of my property, and they took all of Dad's property because it was right down on the creek.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he moved out from down there. And the rest of his life, he lived in a little corner of that land up on the main road. Even had electric lights.
Good for him. So what reservoir was that coming through? What were they building?
The
know?
power was coming through
Yeah.
EMEPA.
Okay.
And so we had power.
Wow.
And they were willing to hook him up to the
That's
power
right.
up there. See,
Mm.
and in fact, when Cindy and Mark they decided to move back to Meridian, to Mississippi. They were living in Texas at that time, and so I said, well, just go up and build your house on the farm. And so they were planning to do that. And Mark didn't like the way things were going with his arrangement he had with some of his people he's working with. So he didn't stay with that. He moved on. And Cindy was tickled to death because she wanted to get back in Laurel. And, of course, Mark did too. So I lost them. I used it as a lever. I thought I could take Joyce up there if they were there.
You were trying to get back to
I
Lauderdale?
wanted to get back on the farm.
I understand. I understand. So did you guys grow your own food?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we had gardens. I remember one year when we were living at the old farm, the old Foster farm, I remember having to, we planted Irish potatoes. We had about a half-acre patch for Irish potatoes. And, of course, you plant them early in the spring. And we had taters running out of our ears.
Half an acre,
I
that's
never
a
saw
lot.
so
Yeah.
many potatoes in my life. And I told them, I said, Mama Faye learned to cook potatoes many, many ways. And I said, I swore that I never wanted any more potatoes, but I still love them.
I love them. They're so good. Did you guys can your food or preserve it in certain ways?
Mama Faye wasn't very good at that.
Okay.
She did can some, but we mostly depended on dry food in the wintertime, And of course, Dad had gotten on a full-time job too, so we had money to buy.
Did y'all slaughter or butcher like cows or hogs?
Hogs and stuff like that, yeah.
Wow. What about chickens?
Yeah, well, a chicken better not come on the property because his life was in danger.
I've heard people talking about wringing a chicken's neck.
Oh, I've done that, and that will always be a haunting memory to me because I could feel that neck, and I thought, gosh, I can't do this. But it was my job because Mama Faye wasn't going to do it. Daddy was off at work, and we were getting ready for him to come home, so she said, you got to kill that chicken for me. And I either got to cut his head off or I got to wring his neck. I did feel better about wringing his neck. Yeah. I couldn't cut his head off.
Man.
But anyhow, that kind of stuff was kind of gruesome.
I was asking one of my people one time, how many times did they think you have to wring a neck of a chicken? Like, was there a certain...
Yeah. Well, really about 3 rings.
Okay, and you're done?
For me, yeah. But I could grab him and twist him about 3 times, and he was gone.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, though, like, you would literally go get that chicken, and then y'all would eat it for supper.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we'd have, you've heard the old saying,
excuse us. Dink's got a phone call. You need to answer it.
Somebody from Roanoke, Virginia, and I know it's politics.
Yep.
I don't know anybody from Roanoke. Okay, so you really didn't even realize that you guys were in a depression, probably, right? Because you were born into that situation.
Yeah.
Or, did adults talk about that around you? Like, were you aware that the country was going through the depression?
Well, yeah, but I didn't know how serious it was because everybody was in that mess.
Yeah. So food was never an issue for your family? You always had something to eat?
Oh, we ate, yeah. We always had food.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes we ate a lot of potatoes. Sometimes we ate a lot of peas, cornbread stuff, because we always had that.
Yeah.
And so we would
you ate what you had.
have plenty of food.
Yeah. Is it Virginia again?
I don't want to talk to him. Hello.
Hello, may I please speak to Zelly?
Joyce?
Yes. May I please speak to Zelly?
Sally.
I don't know who you're looking for.
This is Samantha Dupree at home.
No, you must have the wrong number.
I guess I do.
Okay.
I got the right area.
This telephone was rigged up in Tennessee, but I don't live in Tennessee. I live in Mississippi, and I just.
Yeah. Make friends.
No, I didn't. I thought it was going to be a scam type call, so I didn't answer you to start with.
I understand how that is. I'm very careful as well.
Okay.
Check the number again.
Okay. Take care. Bye bye.
Have a nice day.
Bye bye.
Happy Memorial Day. You just made a friend.
Dink makes
You didn't-
friends easily.
You didn't record that, did you?
It was rolling, but I can delete it.
Okay.
That might be good content, though, listening to you answer that phone. Okay, so what were we talking about? The depression. I was asking you if you felt like folks were aware in your area. Like, do you think living in the country helped y'all, though, because you could farm and grow food?
Yeah. Oh, well, we did it on our own.
Right, yeah.
We didn't have anybody helping us, no.
Did you have neighbors?
Yeah, oh yeah. All of my family.
Did everybody have what they needed?
Everybody lived right around there.
Did they help each other during that time? Like as far as
Well, if we needed something, yeah, but everybody else was in the same shape we were, you know. We took care of ourselves,
right.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived in town very little.
Right.
When Dad and Mama Faye married, we moved to town.
Oh, okay.
Dad had a job with Armor Packing Company.
Okay.
And so we thought we'd died and gone to heaven because Daddy had, and we were in a house that had a bathroom.
And electricity, huh?
Electricity, yeah.
But then you went back to the country.
Moved back to when he lost that job, when it quit.
Wow.
Wasn't anything left to do. We had to go back to the country.
Yeah.
So we went back, and then we started what we call sharecropping, which was with, you know, different people around the community that didn't need all their land or something.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So they'd say, okay, you can sharecrop
Yeah.
if you use that field.
Yeah.
So we did.
So your grandparents were an important part of your life.
Oh yes.
Did you spend a
Yeah,
lot of time
very
with them,
much so, yeah.
even after Mama Faye came into the picture?
Yeah. Well, of course, my mother's people had all dispersed by then, and so Dad's people were still living there.
Mm-hmm.
So we still have a family reunion every year.
Now, still?
Yes.
Okay.
My granddaddy's birthday, Harrington. Granddaddy Harrington's birthday was October 6th. So the closest day to the 6th, the closest Saturday. I'll say. The closest Saturday to the 6th of October, we have a barbecue. And they barbecue they started off just everybody bringing food. Over the years, I remember as a little bitty kid, we'd go to Granddaddy's for his birthday. And all the other kids were there, and we had fun. But then as we grew older, they decided that we need to barbecue a hog. So they dug a hole in the ground, and they made them a fire pit in that hole, and they started cooking a pig over that fire in the ground. And so later after that, I don't know if you ever heard of Ike Etheridge or not. Ike was a big community man, and he was not really related to us, but his brother was through marriage. But Ike said, you know what, we need to build something in memory of Mr. Will and Miss Alma. So he asked everybody to start chipping in a little money every year to pay for a place to do this. And so he built a nice little fire pit out of brick, and instead of just one pig, they went to 2, and then they went to 3, because we'd have anywhere from 200 to 250 people there.
Oh.
All of them closely associated or kinfolk. But we still do that.
You still go to it?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I can't be gone now because I have to get back home. I don't leave Joyce by herself, but I do go make an appearance. That's all I do.
Fix a plate.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll get me part of that pork and bring it home.
Yeah. That's nice. Well, tell me about your school experience.
It was terrible.
Okay.
No, I went to Martin School.
Okay.
And
how'd you get there? Did you walk, or was there a bus?
well, no, we had a bus, an old-timey bus that they had just bought the truck that didn't have anything but a windshield. and so they'd buy a new truck, and whoever owned the right to run this route would have to build a body, or they would take the body off of the old truck and put it on this new one.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just kept going like
Mm-hmm.
that. And usually, most of the time, it was the same people that were doing the bus
Mm-hmm.
already. And so we had a bus that would come by. We did have to walk up when we moved down by the creek. We did have to walk from there up to the main road to catch the bus. But if you missed the bus, it wasn't but 2 miles, so you just walked.
Mm-hmm. So you went to the same school from like elementary age through.
When I went through to the 12th grade.
Okay,
I
you graduated
yeah.
on that same campus.
I was the salutatorian.
You were the salutatorian?
Yeah, there was me and Francis and Della. Francis was a valedictorian. I was the salutatorian.
What?
And poor little Della didn't get into that.
They call that what, the historian maybe when you're number
Yeah.
three
I tell
or
him, I
something?
said, well, my Lord, I was a salutatorian of my class. 3 people.
Oh, there was only 3 people in the whole.
Only 3 people.
That's hilarious. Hey, whatever. Number 2 is number 2, right?
Yeah.
So only 3 of y'all graduated.
Some of that graduated, yeah. The rest of them had decided to join the service or
Right.
do something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of them didn't ever graduate.
Right. How many do you think you started out with in your class?
Oh, probably 12,
Okay.
15 maybe.
Yeah. So that was in Collinsville, this little
It
school?
wasn't at Martin.
Oh, is that a
Oh,
community?
we were rivals of Collinsville. We
Oh.
don't associate with Collinsville people.
So Martin was a community
Yeah,
itself.
it was our community. Yes, ma'am.
What was the mascot? Did y'all have a mascot?
The Green Boys. They wore green basketball suits.
Okay. Just Green
so
Boys.
We call them the Green Boys.
So what was Collinsville? What was their mascot?
Huh?
What was the Collinsville mascot? Or they were the Green Boys?
Yeah, they were the Green Boys.
So what were y'all?
We didn't have any mascot.
Oh,
no.
y'all didn't have one? Okay. Did you play sports in school?
No.
Okay.
I wanted to, but I was never good enough, really.
Right.
Because that was a profession at Martin. They only had about 10 or 15 people, and they were good.
Right.
And so really I was always the manager of the
Mm-hmm.
team, and I kept score.
Yeah.
And but I didn't get to practice because I had to work.
Right.
Dad was not there. I had to farm.
Yeah.
The other guys would take off Saturday and go play basketball all evening. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So I just didn't ever fool with it. But that was the only sport we had,
Basketball.
basketball.
Okay. Were there girls basketball team or just
Yes, ma'am.
boys? Girls
Yeah,
and boys.
Now, my 2 sisters both played,
Mm-hmm.
but the girls didn't play like they do now.
Mm-hmm.
Girls were not allowed to touch the ball. If we 3 were on the offensive side of the halfway mark, then the center girl would throw the ball in to one of us, and we would bounce the ball one time, and you could stop, bounce it one time, take about 2 or 3 steps, and stop. Now, if anybody else touched that ball, then it was a technical foul against them. So you could stand there and hold that silly ball all evening in the girls. And but then the girls decided we can play boys type ball.
Mm-hmm.
So they do.
Yeah.
They run and they play and they work hard.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
But they were not allowed to cross. The guards were not allowed to cross the line down into the offensive side.
Okay.
And so we had the guards from our team and the offense from the other team on this end, and the reverse of that on the other end. So the girls had their own little game, and everybody enjoyed it.
Wow.
but you had to be real careful because you don't want to get technical
That's right.
fouls. Yeah, 5 technicals. I never will forget. 5 technicals would throw you out of the ball game. If you had 5 technicals, they'd say, "Okay, you fouled out."
I didn't know. I'm
Now
learning.
that was for the girls.
Yeah. Did y'all have a gymnasium at your school that y'all played in? Or was that outdoors? Like y'all had a gym?
Yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah. Finally,
Okay.
finally.
Mm-hmm.
Back when I don't know. I'm trying to think. I would probably have been somewhere around 12, 10, about 10 years old,
Uh-huh.
and the school burned, the old school,
Mm.
and it was during the Second World War. It was still going on,
Right.
you know. So they brought in the boys from
Mm-hmm.
the, well, what do you call them? The CCC boys.
The CC camp, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they was along with guys that were qualified to build a house or
Right.
to build a school. They would come, and these boys all worked for them. See,
That's right.
so they built a gym on this school,
Nice.
and so I finished out my school there in that gym. But they played on the dirt court for a long
Okay.
time when I was a kid.
So when you were in elementary, junior high, that's when World War II was going on.
Yeah.
What was your experience with that as far as what you remember about that?
Well, we were.
Did you know men that had to go?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. In fact, the guy that lived across the road from the old farm where I got the farm up there now, he was a boy named Tucker,
Mm-hmm.
and his name was Julius Tucker, and they named that road after him.
Mm-hmm.
Julius Tucker Memorial Drive, they called it. And but Julius and I used to play together, but he was older than me, so he went in the service and he got killed. I don't think it was a war wound. I think he had a wreck or something in an army truck or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
Did you know some men that went to war and
Oh yeah,
didn't
yeah.
come back? Or
Most of our family went. You know.
did you guys lose anybody during World War II from your family?
We didn't lose anybody.
Everybody came home.
Everybody made it back. But Dad had 6 sisters, and you know it's funny because he and the 3 other brothers, none of them went to the service. Daddy went, and they did a thing where they had to check him out, and they found out he had 6 little kids at home, and he was older. So they said, "You need to stay on the farm." So they left him.
So your dad was within the age.
He was.
to go, but they
were
excused him.
taking anything by
Right.
then, and so they would have taken him if it hadn't been for all those children.
Yeah.
But he came back.
Yeah.
And he had three other brothers. None of them
None of
had
them.
to go.
What about your aunts, the 6 sisters? Did their husbands,
Yeah.
some of them had to go?
All of their husbands just about wound up in the army
Wow.
and made it back.
That's amazing that
It is.
everybody made it back.
Yeah, it really was.
Wow.
But, you know, they all done left us.
Mm-hmm.
All of them pegged out.
So do you remember Pearl Harbor?
Yeah, oh yeah. It was Sunday.
December 7th was a
Sunday
Sunday.
morning, and the Japanese just come running in there,
That's true.
and they ruined our Navy completely. They sunk all of our ships, just about it. I had an uncle on my mother's side who was out on a ship, and they actually dropped a bomb on that ship, and it went down the smokestack on the ship and made a terrible mess. But he didn't. He was not even knocked off of the deck. He was still up on there, but he stayed on that boat.
Yeah.
He was gone. His wife was there in Pearl Harbor, and they had a little boy, and she grabbed that baby up, and the whole idea was that if you got a problem, head for the mountains, head for the cane fields, anywhere, get out of town. So she jumped in the car, took Rob with her, and they headed towards the mountains. And it got so dangerous because they were dropping bombs all around them. And she pulled off on the side of the road right quick, jumped out of the car, got Rob. He was a little bitty guy. She got Rob and laid down in that cane field with Rob underneath her so that he wouldn't get hurt. And that's where she lay until the planes left.
Wow. And this was your...
What was funny, on those old cars, they put a tail light on the back of it, and it stuck out on a stem. I don't know if you ever saw a 38 model Chevrolet before, but they had one. But that tail light stuck out on a little stem on the back. They had two tail lights on it. And that was a new thing for the cars. So a bomb hit close enough that shrapnel clipped that one tail light off.
Whoa.
And I remember when they came home after things settled down a little, they came home one weekend, or one summer, and he's still driving that old 38 model Chevrolet.
It made it back.
And they had patched that hole.
Wow.
They didn't put another tail light. They just patched that hole. And so he had a tail light on one side, but he didn't have one on the other side.
Dang. Now, this was your uncle that was on the ship.
He was on the ship.
And then this was your aunt and your first cousin.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They still live in, the first cousin still lives in California.
Wow.
And my youngest sister lives out there.
Okay.
She's 92. So
92 years young, right? Did you guys ever write letters to people?
Oh yeah,
like soldiers and things?
My mother's two brothers were both in the service. Uncle Orland was the one who was in the Navy, and he stayed 30-odd years in the Navy. And my Uncle Monroe he spent his war years in the Philippine Islands, building barracks for the soldiers because that was part of our country, our part of our people. We took them under our
like
wings.
Occupation.
And so they were taking care of them. And the Japanese bombed that island. And Monroe told me one time, he said, he said, I used to love to hunt and shoot squirrels and rabbits. That was the main way that we had of having meat, was to have to kill squirrels and rabbits. And believe it or not, possums.
Okay.
We ate possums. I knew they were good. That's all I knew. They were meat. But really what they would do is they'd catch a possum and put him in a coop, a chicken coop or something, and they'd feed him for about 4 or 5 days and clean him out real good.
And then?
Anyhow, Monroe said, I love to hunt, but he said, I won't ever shoot another squirrel. And I said, why, Uncle? He said, well, because he said, I was laying out there on that beach and them Japanese were strafing that island, and I'm laying there just praying that one of them bullets won't get me, because he said, I wasn't even in the Army. But he said, I made it. So I ain't shooting no more squirrels, he said.
Well, so for you, after you graduated from Martin, what happened after that? What was your next
Well,
step?
of course, I went in the Army pretty soon. I worked at the hosiery mill, by the way,
The what mill? The
where they make ladies' nylon hose.
hosiery mill? Okay,
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure I heard that.
I gotta tell you this. This was funny. They drafted me into the Army.
So you were drafted. You did not.
I didn't join, no.
Okay.
I knew that I was going to have to go, but
Okay.
and then I didn't mind, but I
Yeah.
didn't really care about staying 4 years.
Right.
I said maybe if I just go in as a draftee, they'll let me go home in a couple of years. And sure enough, they did. But anyhow, they put us on a bus and carried us from Jackson to San Antonio, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And there I got a brand new haircut that took every bit of it off. I got a new haircut and a bunch of quartermaster clothes that had never seen an iron. And you never saw such a ragged bunch of people in your life. But there was about 12 of us from Texas and Louisiana and Mississippi that went to San Antonio, and we were assigned to the 591st Military Police Corps in El Paso, Texas. Now, to get there, I had to go in this room with this old big sergeant, and he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'd really prefer to go home, but I got an idea you're not going to let me. And he said, you belong to me for 2 years. He said, I said, okay, you just put me where you want to. He said, well, what were you doing in civilian life? I said, well, I was a farmer, and then I was a knitter. Now, this is what he's seeing, you know,
Right,
a
yeah.
knitter? And I said, yeah. He said, you were a knitter? And I said, yeah. He said, and I started laughing. I
Yeah.
told him, I said, yeah, we made ladies nylon hose. Oh, come on. So he had this huge book, that thick, about this big square. He said, let's see if we can find out about a knitter. Sure enough, he turned in that book till it got to a knitter, and it told what a knitter's duty was. We ran a machine, a big, long machine, made 24 stockings at a time. That was back when they had seams up the back. And he laughed. He said, I never dreamed that you would be a knitter. I said, well, that's what we really were. We were knitters. And we ran those machines, and we got paid by the dozen of stockings that we made. So anyhow, next thing I knew, the next day, I had a set of orders that said, El Paso, Texas, 591st Military Police Company. How do you get that off a knitting machine?
He saw something in you that you didn't see in
I
yourself.
didn't know I had that.
So what did that mean? What'd you do?
I worked downtown patrol in El Paso. You ought to have seen me. I was a sharp little guy. I had my 45 hanging on my hip, a billy club on the other hip, and a band on my arm that said I was a policeman. And I had a white cap. Somewhere I've got a picture, maybe in here. I think it's over in that book. But anyhow, with me with my uniform on.
Yeah.
But and with my military police stuff.
Yeah. But why did they need military police down in El Paso?
Well, because the guys were coming to town. They all would wear civilian clothes, but most of them were soldiers. So the policemen loved for us to be there. And I worked with the city police a lot in El Paso because they said, well, the effect it has on those soldiers when they see you in that car, they think, uh-oh, we're in trouble. And they feel like they might could out-talk the policeman, but they don't think they can out-talk me. So I'm gonna arrest them if they're doing something wrong, you know. But that was my job.
Okay.
I worked downtown patrol in El Paso, and then I got married and brought my wife out there. So I went to the base once a month to get paid. I went to I went out there for all my shots. And stuff. And the Army was famous for giving you shots.
Yeah.
They want to shoot you for everything, you know. So, but it was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Did your wife like living out there?
Not especially, no. She she wanted to be back home
Yeah.
too.
Was she from Mississippi?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. She was from what we call Center Hill up there,
Where's
which
that?
is out. It's across the reservoir from Martin.
Oh, okay.
A little country school up there. They were one of our rivals too. See, but it was called Center Hill. She went to school there, and but we did fine. Our first child was born there.
Okay.
A year later, I tell them she and I got married on June the 6th, but our daughter was born on June the 1st, and she was a year later. But but anyway, we lived out there till Belinda was born there, and then when she was about 6 months old, me and another one of the military policemen and our wives shared an apartment. Can you imagine that?
Mm-mm.
We shared an apartment. It had 2 bedrooms, one down at this end of the apartment and one down here. In the middle was a bathroom and then a little seating area. So there was just 4 little rooms there. And so he and I shared that apartment, and he and his wife decided that she wanted to go back to Texas. She was from Houston. She wanted to go back to Texas, and he said, "Well, Harrington," he said, if she's going back to Texas, I can't stay here and pay my half of the rent." I said, "Okay, I'll tell you what, let's do. Let me take my wife home. We only like 3 months being ready to be discharged." So I said, "I'm going to take my wife home and the baby, and they can stay at home for 3 months till I get back." So that's what we did. But she was ready to come home by then. But it was a good life. It was different.
So after El Paso,
El Paso.
what
yeah.
happened after that?
Well, when I got back home, went back to my old job.
So you left. That was 2 years you spent out there.
Yeah.
So you went back to civilian life.
Went back to civilian life.
Okay.
Yeah, and they wanted me to come back to the hosiery mill where I had the job before. They were under obligation to take me back, but while I was gone, they had voted in a union, and so when I got back to work, they said, "Now you're gonna have to join the union." I said, "I don't want to join the union," and they said, "Well, you have to. It's a closed shop. You'll have to join the union." And I said, "I'm gonna have to pay somebody else to let me work?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "I don't want to do that." But one of the other foremen came by and he said, "Harrington, I'm going to tell you something. They fixing to close this place down." He said, "If I were you, I'd look for another job." And so I said, "Okay." He said, "In the meantime, you will have to join the union." And so I said, "Okay." So I went down to the Lamar Hotel in downtown Meridian, knocked on this door, and this old big fat guy comes to the door, had on one of them old-timey undershirts, and he's got a big belly, and he's standing there with a drink in his hand. We're still in probation time in Mississippi then, see. But he's got his drink in his hand. He's sitting in an air-conditioned room that I had never heard of before. And he said, "Come on in." So I had to go in. I had to pay him the union dues and sign up. And so I immediately started looking for a job. And I finally found one with Standard Coffee Company. So I worked there for about 5 years.
Okay. What did you do with the coffee company?
Sold coffee. I had a little truck, little coffee truck.
Yeah.
They were black on the bottom and orange on top. You don't remember that, but
I'm gonna Google that.
we sold coffee. That was to get you in the house, and you get them in the house, and they're drinking good coffee. It's
So
real
did you
good.
make house calls to people, or you would
Yeah, I
deliver to
went to the
grocery stores?
houses.
Okay.
Back then, the women were all at home. They were not working.
So you made stops at their homes.
I made stops out in the country and so forth.
So like coffee tins? Was it like a tin? You would sell them tins
it
of
was
coffee?
in a bag,
A
in
bag.
a coffee bag.
Ground, or was it whole bean?
We called it Crescent Club, and we had Arab Blend, which was a pure coffee.
Okay.
Crescent Club had just a little bit of chicory. So I told them, I could tell them that it would go farther than regular
Because
coffee.
it's like a stronger blend.
It did a stronger
darker.
brand. So I sold a lot of coffee. And then they decided they wanted a supervisor, so they made me a supervisor. And then I got about 5 men working under me. And I never have liked to have people working under me. I'd rather
Right.
do it myself, really. But anyhow, they put me out there taking care of those 5 routes. And I made a percentage of what each one of those routes made, which was less money than I was making on my route.
Wow.
So when time got pushing on me, I said, well, I believe I'm going to get back out there on the route. And so I stayed out there a little while, but then went to work selling cigarettes.
Okay.
Liggett and Myers Tobacco Company.
What's it called?
Liggett and Myers Tobacco, L&M's.
Never heard of that.
You never heard of those? I smoked a many one.
Was it just cigarettes, or was it like chewing tobacco? Or?
No, we sold chewing tobacco too, but it was called, I can't think of the name of it
Did
now.
you make house calls for that, or was that to stores?
Yeah, no, I sold cigarettes to the stores.
Uh-huh.
And I'd call on the stores, and I'd call on the wholesale houses and sell them cigarettes so they could sell them to the stores.
Never heard of that.
But I was about starved to death.
Oh.
They wouldn't pay enough. So
I mean, was that back when everybody was smoking, though? Like,
Yeah.
everybody smoked?
everybody smoked, yeah.
I mean, is that really how it was?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everybody smoked. And you could just, anytime you went in a house, it was always full of
Yeah.
smoke.
Both of my grandmothers, no, not one of my grandmothers and one of my great grandmothers, basically said they started smoking when they were like 13 years old.
I was doing it before then.
Yeah, I mean, and they probably were too. That's just what they told me, And one of them still going. She's
Yeah.
still smoking those, whatever
Well,
she.
you can say what you want to about cigarettes. They might kill you. I quit smoking because they were nasty.
Uh-huh.
I loved them, but they were nasty. But I got out of the tobacco business and went to work for Borden.
Okay.
So then I started trying to quit smoking. You had never had such a time in your life as it is to get off of those things. Man, I could think of all kind of reasons why I didn't need to get off of them. I'd reason with myself. I said, I don't have any other vices. I don't go out drinking every night. I don't mess around with women. I said, I don't have any vices. What's wrong with me smoking? So I'd go back and start smoking again.
Was it like the angel on this shoulder and then the devil over
The
here?
devil was over there. He sure was. I'd come up with ideas like, I believe I'll just smoke a cigar. I believe that'll be That's
Wasn't the
dumb. You. But anyhow, I quit.
Did you smoke what you sold? The L&M?
Yeah,
Is that
oh,
what
yeah.
you smoked? Did you get a discount for working there?
Oh, they gave them to me.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. So what year was that you started working for Borden?
57,
Okay.
1957.
Yeah.
I tripled my salary.
Okay.
But let me tell you what, it don't matter how much money you make, it's how you spend it.
Mm-hmm.
Within just a few months after I went to work for Borden, we were living from payday to payday again. And I told Joyce one time, I said, I'd be riding along in my little milk truck and I'd look in the mirror and this little old car was running along behind me and I'd say, that's my wife. I'd pull over and stop and she'd say, Dennis, the bank has made another mistake. I said, what do you mean? Well, they bounced a check on me. I said, well, are you sure it was the bank's? Oh, yeah, I got my records right here. Only she didn't put all the checks in there. So I'd have to go to the bank, borrow $100 to cover the checks until I could get paid again. So it was a fun life. But that was after I had tripled my salary.
Wow. So what was a day in the life of a Borden milk? Would you call yourself a milkman? Is that what you're talking? I mean, what were y'all called? Salesmen or?
We were I was delivering door to door when I started, and we slinged the milk out on the steps until it got daylight. Then, if there was anybody at home, we'd go on in and put the milk in the refrigerator. And if they had 1/2 gallon already in there, you just leave them 2 this time, and so forth. So you knew what the buildup was.
So how did they pay?
They paid a commission.
I mean, how did the customer pay you? Like,
the milk was billed to me when I put it on my truck. So then I had to bill the customer for it.
so you would take the money from them.
I would take the money from them, and then I would deposit the money against my account
Okay.
with Borden. And at checkup time, if I didn't have all the money, which a lot of times I didn't because I'd buy cigarettes and stuff like that out of my Borden money.
Mm-hmm.
So when it come time to pay up, I knew I was going to be $3 or $4 short
Right.
because I knew I had spent that much. And so I made arrangements for that because I said, well, I don't want to keep my money and their money in my pocket. So I said, I'll just leave my money at home. And come to find out my wife was not keeping up with it either.
So what time did your day start with your milk delivery service?
Anywhere from 3 o'clock in the morning until 5.
Yeah. So you would go to the Borden plant, load your truck.
Yeah. Well, no, I loaded the truck every night.
Okay, and it was
Next
refrigerated.
morning, all I had to do was crank it up and drove.
So your
to
truck,
work.
how did it stay cool?
Had a refrigeration unit on
Okay.
it. So I just unplug it from the refrigeration and had big plates overhead in the truck. And they were frozen.
So like at 3 a.m.,
Yeah.
you would hit the road.
Got to hit the road, yeah.
Wow.
Now, I didn't do that all the time, but at times I had to. But normally, my day would actually start around 5, around 4:30 or 5.
So how would you get in people's houses? They just knew you and would like leave the door
A lot
open?
of them had keys to their house. Yeah. I never will forget one of the competitors was out there, and they were trying to work an area that I was pretty dominant in. And this guy got back with his group, and he said, let's get out of here. Said, this is Dennis's territory. And he said, excuse me. Hey, Keith. Give me a minute and I'll call you back after a little bit, okay?
Okay, all right.
All right, I love you. Bye-bye.
You are an important man.
But that's my son.
Oh, okay.
He said, let's get out of here. And he said, you can't get his customers. You can't call them people. He said, he got keys to the damn houses. He said,
You were like part of the family, huh?
Yeah. But that was funny. I thought that was real funny. This lady said, "Oh no, I wouldn't switch from Dennis." Says he's my milkman. I just give him the key to the house. She said.
That is so. Wow.
But they were good people.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that
Yeah, I bet so.
because they got to where they were like kinfolk.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I knew them. I knew the mamas and their daddies and everybody. You know?
Well, and how many houses would you visit on a route?
Oh gosh, 150.
So, I mean, some people would probably be like up having breakfast, huh? And
Oh,
you
yeah,
would be
yeah.
coming in and.
And if they happen to have a cup of coffee on the table, I might even sip a cup of coffee right quick.
So you
But
would spend time with your customers
Yeah,
a
oh,
little
yeah.
bit. Wow.
I was not fooling around, but I was
Right.
selling stuff.
Right.
I had a good relationship with the customers.
That probably meant a lot. I mean, to let you come in their house
Yeah.
or give you a key.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Never will forget one time I went to this house, and this lady had given me a key to the house because she said, "Sometime I'm not there, and I didn't want you to leave the milk outside." Said, "Let me just give you a key." Well, I didn't ever use that key. I had them hanging on a little peg inside my truck, all those keys, and I'd lock them up in my truck at night. And so I got to this house, and this man was sitting out on his steps at his house, and he said, "Hey, milkman," said, "maybe you can help me. I'm trying to get in the house." And he said, "I left my keys in the house, and my wife is not here." And I said, "Well, you think there's a window open?" And he said, "I don't know. Let's just check." So we eased around the house. Sure enough, found the window open. I crawled in the window and opened the door. I drove away, and I said, "Well, you stupid nut. You had a key to the house all the time."
Wow. That is so unbelievable. So, Borden, what kind of milk did you deliver? Was it always whole milk, or did y'all have
Oh,
different
we
kinds?
had different things, yeah.
And people, you knew
Skim
their
milk,
order, or they
yeah.
told you, or
They just told me what they wanted, and I knew what to leave.
wow.
So,
So you really did like build a relationship
Yeah.
with your customers.
Yeah. They never. Most of the time, they didn't even tell me what they wanted. I just
just
go and
knew.
put what they needed in the refrigerator. Sold them eggs and butter and margarine.
Oh, y'all sold eggs and butter?
Yeah, we sold all that stuff.
I didn't know that.
And if they wanted me to, all they had to do is tell me, and I just build the order up every day to that.
Was this all in town? Was your route in town, or was it out in the country?
Well, most of it was in town.
Uh-huh.
But I had one little leg that went up towards Collinsville.
Okay.
About up to old Succolina, we called it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just one day a week. I mean, 3 days a week I went there.
Yeah.
But at that time, I was living out in that area.
Uh-huh.
So I could deliver my own milk too, while I was there.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, it was a good life. Good life.
Well, so was Borden started in Meridian? Was that a local business, or?
No, it was the old Purity Milk Company,
Mm-hmm.
and the Reeves brothers owned it.
Yeah.
They called it Purity Milk, and they had a pretty good little what do you call it? Portfolio, I guess.
Yeah.
People knew them. They knew that they had good products, and they knew that they were taking care of them. So Borden bought it.
Okay.
So I went to work for them right after Borden bought it.
Now, is Borden the one with the cow, like Bessie?
Yeah.
The cow?
Well,
Okay.
only we called her Elsie.
Elsie.
Elsie the cow.
That's what okay. Do you
Yeah.
know the story behind that, or that was just their mascot?
Oh, they had a cow. Her name was Elsie.
Wow.
Oh, listen, when I got into supervision with them, anytime we were doing something, if the cow was close by, I would make arrangements to have her in Meridian or wherever, Laurel, wherever I was.
Like, so Elsie was a real cow.
It was real cow.
and you
yeah.
met that cow.
Oh yeah. And they had a little calf. It was not hers,
Right.
but Beauregard. Beauregard was supposed to be her calf,
Uh-huh.
but she wasn't. He
Yeah.
wasn't. He wasn't her calf. But the guys they traveled with her. These two boys
Yeah.
traveled with that cow. They were college kids from University of Oklahoma,
Okay.
and that's where they kept her. It was up in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
No, I'm sorry, Ohio.
Ohio.
University of Ohio.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
It was Columbus, in it, Columbus,
okay.
Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio.
And they lived there, and they went to school there in Columbus. So they worked in the summertime hauling Elsie around.
So she was literally like the mascot of
Yeah,
Borden.
she was the mascot. Yeah.
Man, you have met so many famous people and animals.
My youngest daughter found out that she knew that if the cow was there, I was going to be with it.
Uh-huh.
So she wanted to be sure she was in there too. So if we were going to have Elsie, she wanted to be there with Elsie. If we were going to have the train, she wanted to ride in the coal car. She wasn't about that high at that time,
Wow.
but she wanted to go everywhere I did. So I enjoyed her more than the other two because I had more time.
Yeah. Well, so how long were you with Borden?
About 35 years.
Oh, okay. So you retired with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you transition off the milk truck and worked in different places in the business?
Yeah, I worked. They moved me around a lot. I told them that they sent me from Meridian to Hattiesburg, and I got down there and I stayed for 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing you know, I got transferred on to Biloxi. I said they couldn't find anything I knew how to do, so they just kept moving me.
But they didn't let you go.
That's
They
right. They
wouldn't let
kept
me
you
go,
around.
no.
So you sold coffee, cigarettes, milk, pantyhose. You didn't sell pantyhose though, right? You just made them. Did you sell pantyhose or you just made?
No, I
pantyhose?
didn't. They were not making pantyhose at that time. All they had was these, and you had to have a garter belt. Did you ever wear a
Good
garter
Lord,
belt?
no. Mm-mm. What was your favorite?
Joyce did. Joyce did. But she knew what a garter belt was.
That's funny.
But when they went to pantyhose, they didn't need that
Okay.
anymore.
So what was your favorite thing you ever sold? Coffee, cigarettes, or milk?
I probably enjoyed milk
Yeah.
better.
Okay.
Because it kept me closer to the customer. I got to see the same customer 3 times a week normally.
So most homes had delivery 3 times a week?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Back then I had this route over here. I worked Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
This other route I worked Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Okay.
So I worked 6 days a week,
Right.
and so you got to know those people mighty well.
Wow.
You know, they were just good, down to earth
Yeah.
people. Of course, we had some, that was kind of shady people, but and some didn't pay me sometimes. But most of the time, I didn't have any trouble collecting my money.
Because how much did milk cost when you first started?
Oh, I'd have to charge 25 cents for a quart of milk.
Okay.
25 cents.
What do you think about milk prices today?
50 cents for a half gallon. And
Yeah.
it was. And when we first started in the gallons, I'd sell a gallon for 99 cents.
I don't even know how much. I have no idea what a gallon of milk costs right now.
Yeah.
More than that.
Oh, you don't?
No. Do you buy it by the gallon? Do you buy
No,
milk?
I buy a half gallon.
Okay. Do you
but I
still buy
pay-
Borden's?
No, there is no more
Is it
Borden.
no more?
No more
Oh.
Borden.
So that company.
They went. I tell them that after I retired, they went under.
You were holding it together.
But anyhow, the milk business was in trouble, and I knew that
Yeah.
because people were willing, like Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
I called on them. They were opening a new store at Gulfport. So I went to see him, and I said, "Are you going to handle milk?" And he said, "If I can get a milkman." I said, "You got him. I want to be your milkman." He said, "Okay." He said, "Just tell me when you get ready." and I'll come pick it up. I said, pick it up? And he said, yeah. He said, I'll just back our trailer in and get it.
Mm.
And I said, you gonna just buy your milk from me and you gonna deliver it to your stores yourself? And he said, yeah. I said, you're not gonna do boarding that way. I said, you can't do that.
Mm.
But he did. Not for me, but he did it with other companies.
Mm-hmm.
And they put that kind of stuff, put all the milk business in trouble.
Mm.
Just about all the milk you buy today is going to wind up being artificial milk of some sort, or it's going to be their private label.
Yeah.
They don't, Walmart can make you buy anything they want to.
You're right about that.
All they got to do is just
Yeah.
don't have the other.
Yeah, you're right. It forces people to buy things. That's right.
For a while there, I wouldn't buy any salt except Morton's.
Mm-hmm.
It had to be Morton's iodized salt. Well, for weeks there, I couldn't get iodized Morton's iodized
Mm-hmm.
salt. So I finally had to buy some somewhere else. So they can force you to buy whatever they want to.
Mm-hmm.
Now with me now, with Joyce, I can't shop all over town.
Right, yeah.
I can't do that. I have to be back home.
Yeah.
So I just have to buy whatever they want to sell me, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, can you talk a little bit more about your military service as far as your involvement with the Korean conflict?
Korean conflict.
Yes, sir.
Just in for the 2 years,
Right.
of course.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, Eisenhower had just run for president.
Mm-hmm.
Roosevelt had died, and Truman, I believe it was the president. And then Eisenhower ran against him. Well, everybody liked Ike.
Mm-hmm.
So Ike promised him when he ran, he said, well, I'm going to send all the boys home.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get out of this.
Mm-hmm.
So I was for him. I said, you know, we're over there messing with those people, and we don't have any business, so far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
being there. I was glad when Eisenhower got in there because it was time for me to get out anyhow.
Right.
So I said, well, okay, I'm going home. So if he get out of the war, I know I can go home. But I tried to volunteer to go to Germany. The thing was that I could either I was gonna have to probably go to Korea, or I was gonna have to go to Germany. And I had my wife over there, and I had a new baby. And I said, you know, if they send me to Korea, I'll be leaving from the West Coast. If I go to Germany, I'll be leaving from the East Coast. So I said, I want to volunteer to go to Germany. And I heard another voice on the phone, and the guy said, who you talking to? And he said, I'm talking to Harrington. He said, what's he doing? He said, he's wanting to volunteer to go to Germany. Why does he want to do that? And he said, well, he just wants to be able to carry his wife home. So he wants to get out of this so he can get all the way across the country. And I heard that fellow say, you tell Dennis don't volunteer for a damn thing. He said, I said, okay, I'm not going to do that. So I didn't volunteer, but I tried to. But that's the only problem that I ever had was worried about that.
Yeah.
I said, I don't know what would happen. She couldn't drive and carry that baby all the way home. We had the car over there, but She couldn't do that by herself.
Yeah.
So I thought, I got to get her home, you know. But I found out I didn't have to.
Okay.
So I was glad to get out, and I was glad to get back home.
That's right. Okay.
The only out of the country work I did was I had to go over to Mexico and get some people out of jail a time or two. That's all.
That's important work. Americans? Some
Yeah.
Americans?
Oh yeah, American soldiers.
Oh, no.
They'd get drunk and fight, and they'd put them in a jail. That's the awfulest thing you've ever seen. They had a wall, a square room built with no top on it. Just a big square room, about 8 feet tall.
Oh
and
my
and they
goodness.
put them prisoners in that wall, locked the door, sun beaming down, and them people's in that old pen.
Yeah.
Mexicans and everybody in there together. So I
Dang.
thought, well, man, I don't ever want to be in there. But we could go over there and pick them up, bring them home. I found out a few years later that I was a POW, and I didn't know that. If you call the records service in Colorado, you could probably find out that I was a POW. Now, I was not.
Yeah.
They mixed up the records. And I said, well, fix it. Don't do that. I'm not a POW.
Right.
Never was. And they said, well, we can't change it. I said, somebody did, because I was never a POW. So we've had a lot of fun about that. All of us, you know. 'Cause
Yeah.
I tell Joyce, she'll say, well, what happened to you right there? I said, that's one of the war wounds I got while I was a POW.
That's so interesting, and they can't fix it on the
No.
paperwork.
That's what she said. Well, she told me that, I got, Palacio put me in touch with his secretary in Hattiesburg, his representative in Hattiesburg. And he said, you get with her, and I'm going to tell her you're going to call, and you see if you see what they're doing, because he said, he don't want to be an OPOW.
No, yeah.
So she said, okay. So I went, got down there, and she said, well, let's just call them and see what we can find out. So I called, and they said, yeah, the record shows that he's a former POW. And she said, well, how could they do that? She said, well, some of the records got destroyed in a fire. Now, I'm not buying all this, because they use that a lot. They said, well, the records got burned up, you know. So I said, well, as the old boy up at home used to say, spoil it out. I said, spoil it out, you know. And she laughed. She said, I can't spoil it out. It won't do that. Wow. I said, you can't change it? And she said, no. It's in your record. It'll be there. I said,
That's crazy.
ma'am, I never was a POW. They never arrested me for anything. I never even went to sick leave. I said, but anyway.
Do they try to give you things, or do you receive mail? I mean,
Oh, for a little while I did. I finally just wrote to the lady in Jackson.
Yeah.
And I said, ma'am, I am not a former POW. I said, they got the records mixed up. She was wanting me to get together with the other former POWs.
Oh my gosh.
I said, I can't do that, no. But anyhow, I told her, I said, no, I can't do that. But I said, if you can get my name off of the record, I'd appreciate it. She said, well, I can do that.
Yeah.
I said, okay, just do it in your office, and that way I won't have to be getting mail from y'all anymore. Anyhow.
Well, Dawn, do you have any thoughts or questions?
I don't know. I think that you've covered everything pretty well. I mean,
I know some stuff about Dawn.
What do you know about Dawn?
She was a kicker.
Really?
Yeah.
You were a kicker?
Michael.
Not the kind you're
Michael.
thinking.
I asked Michael, who's this girl you all interested in? And he looked at me and grinned. He said, she's a kicker. I said, okay.
On the dance line.
Oh,
We were-
yeah. You kick
kicked
that leg
their
up.
leg.
Okay. I forget
We
about
met
that.
in the band at Jones.
On the
so-
football field,
on the
right?
football field.
But I picked a pretty good family to get in.
That's right.
You know
Yeah.
did.
So how about you and Joyce? How did you and Joyce meet?
that? It was kind of a fouled up affair, I guess. Not
Mhm.
really. I'm just kidding. But I had this lady that lived in the same apartment complex where I lived in Hattiesburg.
Mm-hmm.
She was from Ucutta
Mm-hmm.
out here, but she had lived in Heidelberg, and her husband was in the oil business, and they got a divorce. And so she was working for this little bank here, but she had gone to work for Trustmark,
Mm-hmm.
and they sent her to Hattiesburg. And my little daughter was 13 at the time, and she was a water duck. So anytime she was, I told her, I said, you can stay with your mother, or you can go with me. You're free to do whatever you want to, or you can just be mine and her kid.
Mm-hmm.
We'll both still, you're belonging to both of us. And you can come see me anytime you want to. And you can come stay with me anytime you want to. And she said, well, Daddy, I believe I want to go ahead and finish school at West Lauderdale.
Mm-hmm.
I said, that's all right. You just do that. But you call me anytime you want to come
Mm-hmm.
to visit with me. You call me. So sure enough, about every 2 weeks, she'd call and say, Dad, I want to come spend the weekend with you. I say, okay. So I get off from work and I drive to Meridian and get her and bring her back. And then when I moved to the coast, now they had swimming pool at the apartment complex in Hattiesburg. So she thought she had died, gone to heaven when she had a swimming pool. So we'd go out there in the afternoon. I wouldn't let her go out during the day. I'd say, no, you got to stay in the apartment till I get home.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd come home for lunch
Yeah.
and see about her, make sure she's okay. And so then when I got home, she had her bathing suit on. She's ready to go to the pool, you know. So I met this lady named Paula.
Mm-hmm.
I met Paula because she and several other ladies would be sitting around out there with their husbands and so forth, watching the kids play in the pool. And one day she said, Dennis, I want you to meet this lady. She said, y'all are the same kind of people. She said, I want you to meet her. I said, well, we'll see about that. But at that time, I had a divorce pending, but I had to wait. And I wasn't caring anything about meeting anybody, really. I just wanted to see if I couldn't get my life back together again. And so then when I moved to the coast, then I get a call one night, and it was Joyce. She said, Paula made me promise that I would call you and ask you to go to this banquet with me. And she said, could you do that? And I said, well, yeah, guess so. I walked in that room that night to pick her up, and this beautiful blonde-haired woman and this real beautiful little blonde-haired girl was in there, and it was Cindy and her. I said, I think this is where I live, right here. So anyhow, but that's where we met.
Okay. So she called you.
She did, yeah. Paula, well, Cindy really made her call. She said, Mama, you promised Miss Paula you would call him. And she said, yeah, but I'm not going to do that. She said, and she said, well, what are you going to tell Miss Paula? She said, well, we just tell her I couldn't get a hold of you. So Cindy said, Mama, call Dennis.
How old was
She
Cindy?
don't, huh?
How old was Cindy?
Oh, she and Mark had just married.
Okay, so she was grown.
She was grown. Yeah, she was in college
Okay.
at Southern. So she said, Mama, you got to call him. You told Miss Paula you would.
Wow. What kind of banquet was it?
Huh?
What banquet? What kind of banquet was it?
It was, Joyce was the town clerk here. So it was a municipal convention.
Wow.
So she was there.
So that was y'all's first date.
That was our first date, yeah. Well, really, we didn't really call it a date, but the next day, we all went out to lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And Cindy and Mark, Donnie and Cindy were there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went over to Ocean Springs, ate lunch. And, of course, they thought of things that they had to get back to Hattiesburg for. And they took off, left me and Joyce sitting there. So we get in the car and we drive up and down the beach a little while and visit and talk. And I liked her a lot, see.
Mm-hmm.
So we and I tell this on her, she don't especially like me to tell this, but when you would walk in my door at the apartment,
Mm-hmm.
there was a wall that you just walk right into that wall,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to go around this little wall to get into the den and the kitchen and the dining area. So we went in. She said, I got to go home. She said, I don't want to be out after dark. So she said, I need to go home. I said, okay, would you like to have a cup of coffee before you go? And she said, yeah, that'd be all right. Let's go. I think she just wanted to see if I had a messy apartment. But anyhow, we walked in, and we sit there and talked and drank our coffee and enjoyed a little visit together. And she said, well, I guess I better go. She had left her car down at the hotel. So I said, let's go. I'll take you back down there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've enjoyed the weekend. So we had a little conversation there, just standing there in the den. And so I just slipped my arm around her shoulder and pulled her kind of close, just give her a little peck on the cheek. And she was ready to get out of there. And this was what was so funny. She went around that thing, going straight around that divider thing, was a little clothes closet. You could put your coat and stuff in there, see. Instead of going to the right outside, she went in the clothes closet. She said, I thought, Lord, what am I going to do? What have I done?
You had her all out of sorts.
What's this man up to? Isn't that right, Joyce Lee?
Oh, gosh.
That's cute.
Well, how long after that? Then after that, y'all, that was it, huh?
Well, yeah, we kind of decided we liked each other. So I tell them all that she invited me up. That was in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
So she invited me to come up, and I would stop by. When I had to go to Meridian to get Denise,
Yeah.
I might stop by the office down there and visit with her a minute. And so then I'd head on back to the coast. And so we did that for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden we kind of thought, well, you know what? This is getting pretty interesting. So we got to where we were making it more often.
Right.
So she'd come down and rent her a little room in a hotel. But I could never talk her into staying with me. But I had 2 bedrooms. She wouldn't do it.
She's too good.
She's a good girl.
So I'd have to go take her back. I'd have to go to the hotel room to see her.
Well.
She wouldn't ever come back in there anymore after she went in the coat closet.
That's funny. Well, how long have y'all been married?
45 years.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. 45 years. Does it seem
45.
like it's been that long?
No, it don't. Life has been good. I never dreamed that I could get my life back together that well, that quick.
Yeah.
Because she was just what I needed,
Mm-hmm.
and we've done fine.
I'm sure she needed you.
Well, I think she's scared to sleep by herself, but isn't that right, Joyce?
She's pleading the fifth over there.
She may be asleep,
Mm-hmm.
but anyhow, I pick at her and tell her she just was scared to sleep by herself.
But y'all kind of found each other
Yeah.
at a time in life when y'all needed each other.
We did, yeah.
Mhm.
We were both at a very vulnerable time in our lives.
Because how old were you when y'all got married?
I was going to be turning 50.
Wow.
We married on June the 6th. I was going to be 50 on the 24th.
Okay.
Mhm.
And Joyce
So
is a little younger?
Half of my life was already gone,
Wow.
I thought.
Mm.
Yeah.
But I'm still hanging in there.
Here you are.
And
How
she
old
is.
were you when you retired?
I retired in 92.
Okay.
So I was 62 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
Mhm.
62, yeah.
And then
So-
y'all got to travel a good bit after that, right?
Yeah, oh
Y'all
yeah,
went-
we had a lot of fun after I retired.
Mm-hmm.
I told them in Biloxi, I said, I'm tired of this. It's not fun anymore. I
Mhm.
want to go home. And I said, I'm just going to retire. And one of the men in Meridian says, Dennis, you can't do that. You got to stay because we need you in Meridian.
Mm-hmm.
Said, just come on back up here and you can work in Meridian as long as you want to. And you can just drive back and forth from Heidelberg. So I told Joyce, I said, well, maybe that might work. I said, because all she ever talked about was getting back to Heidelberg.
Mm.
Want to get back to Heidelberg. Heidelberg in my house.
Mm.
She had to be back in her house in Heidelberg. I never dreamed I was going to ever live in Heidelberg, but I did. Now, I really figured we'd been married 12 years then.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, we ain't gonna live much longer. So I said, I can make it for a while. So we went back to Heidelberg and
To this house?
to this house.
This
yeah.
is beautiful, though. This yard.
Isn't it pretty? It is
Amazing.
pretty.
All the green.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And of course, we had an agreement to
Mhm.
start with. I had property in Meridian. I had a house up there. And so she said, but Dennis, I don't ever want to get rid of my house. She said, I want to leave my house to my kids. I said, I got no problem with that. I said, I didn't, it wasn't my idea to live here to start with, you know. So this house didn't mean anything to me at the time. It does now,
Mm-hmm.
but at the time it didn't. But anyhow, we moved back up here, and I worked a couple more years in Meridian, and then we retired.
Okay.
So it's been but we bought a little box trailer, and so we started traveling a little bit, but not a whole lot with that box trailer. But we would go up in North Georgia, different places, stay a week or two or three at a time, and all of a sudden one day we were in North Georgia, and we went up on top of one of the mountains up there, and there was several houses up there. This old man had an Airstream trailer that was sitting on a pad by the side of his house, and right across the road there was another Airstream trailer. And come to find out, what happened is this trailer that he had sitting across the road was his original trailer. And he'd come up there and he would take that trailer and go back down to Florida where his home was. And he would stay in Florida for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'd come back up there. But he was tall. Man must have been 6'6" or something, big guy. And the little bed in the trailer was like a 3/4 bed. So I know the old man was not comfortable. There wasn't any way for him to stretch out in that thing. So he had bought another trailer, and he was trying to sell this one. and so I priced it, and I said no. I said that's out of my range. I'm not going to pay that for it. And he said, well, that's about the best I can do. I said, well, that's good, and I hope you could get it. But I said, I just can't. I can't do that now. So I left. That fall, we went back up there and drove up on the mountain. I said, let's just see if that trailer's still there. And it was. So I called him. I said, I thought I was going to call his name all of a sudden, but I lost it. Anyhow, I said, is my trailer still there? And he said, yeah. And he said, I can't sell it for what you want to pay, but I'll come off a couple of $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
I said, no. I said, that's still too high for me. So that fall, the next spring, we went back up there, and we stayed in this same little campground every time. And this was before we really started. This was while I was still working.
Mm-hmm.
See, so he said, let's renegotiate this thing. He said, what is your bottom dollar?
Mm-hmm.
And I told him that I said, this is all I can pay. This is all I want to pay.
Mm-hmm.
But I want that trailer if you want to sell it. And he said, okay, you got yourself a trailer. So I bought it. We pulled that little fella everywhere. We went all over this country, crisscrossed it here and you just never did even know it was back there. So we went everywhere with that thing.
It was an Airstream?
Yeah, little
Oh, yeah.
Airstream
Those are
trailer.
so cool.
Mm-hmm.
It was a fine little trailer. In fact, it's still in the family. Laura has got it.
Oh, fun.
They kept it, used it for a while. Now she was talking about making that into an office for herself. I don't know if she ever did
Yeah.
or not.
That's a cute idea.
I got to where I couldn't go back up there
Yeah.
anymore because Joyce couldn't travel that far.
What was your favorite place to visit in the U.S.?
Probably Hiawassee, Georgia, because it was a pretty little old town. It wasn't very big, but it was pretty, and it was so restful and peaceful up there. It was right on the Chautauqua Lake, they called it, and we were going to build a house up there,
Wow.
and but I never could get Joyce to agree to sell this one. So anyhow, finally, we bought this place in Tennessee with the promise that we will sell the house in Heidelberg.
But we sit in
Never
that house.
happened.
That was a package deal, right? Joyce
yeah,
and the
yeah.
house.
It was supposed to be a package deal, and but anyhow, that's the way we got out of the traveling business.
Yeah.
When we didn't have any
That sounds fun.
need for the trailer anymore.
Let me do some wrap ups, okay? So, what would you say was your happiest season of your life when you think back?
The happiest season in my life?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, when I retired
Okay.
and came home.
Okay.
And see, I had been bound up so with my work. So when I retired, I said, praise the Lord.
So, what are you most proud of?
Oh, I'm proud of our family.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know what it is to have kids like we've got.
Mm-hmm.
They're just the best.
That's good.
Uh,
That's sweet.
and I'm so proud that Dawn and Michael and them live here because all the other kids are gone.
Yeah.
All three of mine live in Texas. Her son lives up in Benton, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we got these children.
Wow, you got a good one.
Yeah.
I love Dawn and Michael.
They are.
Well, I'll
Oh,
just add
Michael.
to his talk of like travel and everything. When we go on trips, like with our family,
Yeah.
our goal is to Gran and Dink it. That's what we say. That means we're going to pack a cooler We're going to eat at a rest area and make sandwiches. We're going to go camp. We're going to gran and dink it. So that's how we coined that phrase. We try to pattern after how they traveled and just,
simplify things.
Simplify it, yeah.
I think you and I have talked about that before, because when you've got young children, you don't want to be trying to go in a restaurant and
it's not even fun for you or them.
Let them be outside, right? And they can run around.
Yeah.
Of course, Liam has grown out of a lot of that, but Tegan's just now getting into that thing. You got to be pretty strong to take care of Tegan.
Yeah.
And she knows who Dink is.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
And she'll. Michael told me the last time they come up here, said when I started to turn in, she said, going to Dink's house.
Well, so in your mind, Dink, how old do you feel?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't feel. The only time I feel old is when, like, for instance, these people showed up this morning, and I didn't know they were coming today. But we've been waiting for this land to dry up a little because he was going to bring a big tractor in here.
Right.
And he said...
You had a tree that fell, right?
Huh?
A tree fell?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
a tree
tree fell, and I had a dead pine that I had cut down out there, and it was about 80 feet tall. It was long tall, and I had cut it up. So, but I had no way of getting it out other than if I could buy a set of tongs or borrow a set of tongs or something. But there's no way I could have done anything with that big tree.
Yeah.
But they brought that big tractor over.
Wow.
And that took care of the business for me. And I was so proud of them for doing that.
Well, so this was my other part to that question. How do you feel about aging?
Really, you can't tell much difference. I read a little thing on Facebook that really hit me. It said, "How do you define age?" I define age by the fact that I get to where I get tired a lot quicker than I used to. But inside, I'm still me.
Yeah.
And I still feel the same. I feel like I can do anything, but I know I can't. But really, I feel like that the sky's the limit. All I got to do is get up and do that,
Well, so do you have, and we've not even talked about this at all, but do you have like a favorite scripture or a quote maybe that's meant a lot to you through the years?
Well, probably 23rd Psalms. I've always liked that.
Right.
I like the 23rd Psalm. It's a beautiful bunch of scripture.
Yeah, I agree.
From the Old Testament.
Right here. You got it hanging on
It's
your
on the
wall.
wall.
Right here.
Yeah.
Somebody's
I
read
love
that when
it.
I see it.
Somebody
love it,
did that.
And I'd say of all the scripture, I love 23rd Psalms.
Do you have a favorite hymn that you enjoy?
Yeah,
At church?
Amazing Grace
Yeah.
is always going to be the favorite one. And of course, if you got somebody that can really do a good job, I love to hear the Lord's Prayer if they sing it right. And I got a little granddaughter over in Texas, and I told her, I said, "Now, Carol, if you're still here when I die," I said, "I want you to sing that song for me." Because I loved that. I thought it was so pretty. I loved it. I heard her sing it one time.
Okay.
And I said, I just never heard, every hair on my head stood up, But I just loved it the way she sung it.
Well, so going forward, what are your goals for the years to come?
I want to take care of Joyce. We don't really have time to do a lot, and I know that.
Yeah.
But I just want Joyce to go 2 weeks ahead of me, and I can take care of her.
I like that goal. That's good. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to share? Well, thank you so much.
Oh, blessed Savior, as we go not let us fail or stumble as we go along God's way. Lead us on, Lord Jesus, Lord that happy home night. I just sing